Okay, so enter Bernie Sanders, one of the most influential political movement leaders of all time, the man who brought democratic socialism to mainstream politics, but at the same time, despite being a massive advocate for civil rights, why don't black people vote for this guy? What I mean by that is when Bernie Sanders had his famous primary campaign to Hillary Clinton in 2016, he came really close to the nomination, only losing by 12 points in the popular vote to Hillary Clinton, and honestly, that was really good seeing how she started at 50-60% in the polls, and he started at 5%. Not a lot of people remember about that primary is the reason Bernie did so well is because of white people. Bernie won 50% of the white vote, where Hillary Clinton had 48%. But then what really killed Bernie Sanders was he didn't get a lot of appeal with minorities, where Hillary Clinton had 77% of the black vote, but Bernie Sanders only had 23%. And then for the Hispanic vote, it was about 70% for Hillary Clinton and 30% for Bernie Sanders. That was the thing that tanked Bernie Sanders again in 2020 because Joe Biden got 65% of the black vote, but Bernie Sanders only got 21% in that election. To show how big of a deal that was for Joe Biden, how bad it was for Bernie Sanders, in the early primary states, Iowa and New Hampshire, Joe Biden didn't campaign there and he wasn't in the top three in those states. Bernie did really well in both of them and he won New Hampshire. But at the same time, they went to South Carolina, which was an early primary state. It was 60% black, and Joe Biden absolutely destroyed Bernie Sanders there, nearly beating him 3-1. It's kind of crazy to think about because in the 1970s, Bernie Sanders was an activist getting arrested at civil rights rallies, but at the same time, Joe Biden was in the US Senate and he actually voted against desegregating buses. What's crazy is it's not just Bernie Sanders, it's the hard left in general, where in the 2025 mayoral primary for the Democrat nomination, Andrew Cuomo was able to win the Bronx, which is a heavily black and Hispanic area, with over 20 points over Zohran Mamdani, who beat him in Brooklyn, Manhattan, which are heavily white areas. The case in 2018 when Congressman Joe Crowley lost his primary for the Democrat nomination to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in the Bronx and also Queens, but the reason for that was because AOC actually won the white vote with people moving to those areas, while Joe Crowley won the Hispanic and black vote. Even though black people vote 90% Democrat in general elections, in primaries they don't really seem to like the hard left and they seem to be voting for more moderate candidates. And I think it comes down to a few reasons why they reject socialism, with one being that black people like money. If you go through surveys of who are the most respected people in the black community, it's always been people for generations like Michael Jordan or Oprah Winfrey, people who have succeeded and made billions of dollars. I think there's also this point that black people don't really trust the government to do a very good job. We have people like Zohran Mamdani going out saying there's no problem the government can't fix, but then you ask black people who have had to deal with, let's say the public school system in DC, where they absolutely hate it. There are lotteries to trying to get into charter schools or private schools, and 73% of black people support school choice, which is a Republican position in Washington, DC alone. There's also a truth, a lot of things that Bernie Sanders and AOC advocate are actually really appealing to upper middle income people, but not poor people, with the big example being the student loan bailouts, where it's an over $1 trillion bailout that would come from taxpayer money, but it mainly favors people who are upper middle income. Also, I think the hard left in general just has this massive problem of lecturing about black people versus actually talking to them. But with that, I'm Charles Parle, Red Blue News. Subscribe to learn something.